Hello guys, it's me, Stark, and on the next few days I'm going to be bringing you some of the best games of the LingYuan Cup, so high-level games with some background analysis. Let's start with the first game of the Grand Finals here between Hera and Liereyy. This was very interesting to me because I think that this was the map where we had most variation regarding the civilization choices. I don't have the correct statistics here, but I probably seen more than 14 or even 16 civilizations being played on this map. Players barely repeated their picks here, so many strategies were possible and many different approaches were used here. So this map here is called Lookout. It's a 9-kill start map, and as you can see, players are surrounded by 5 outposts, which can be very helpful to defend and to have extra awareness of the map. So Hero did start here by placing a stable, so it was basically a scout opening. We did saw many man-at-arm approaches here on this map, but it seems that those guys went for a different one. And Liereyy was already walling and trying to set up an archer opening here for the Saracens. It's worth mentioning that every player starts on this map with like 3 villagers on in a mule cart that they basically use during the Dark Age to collect deers, and later during the Castle Age they actually use that to collect gold. So as you can see, during Feudal Age they actually use to collect gold. You also have a starting barracks, so for that reason man-at-arm strategies, since you already have these small investment there, were quite popular. Right there, as you can see, Hero started opening scouts. He was trying to punish Liereyy readily. Despite having all these outposts, the map is quite wide open and it actually takes you some time to wall. So Hero actually tried to punish Liereyy most out of it, using his scout not to suffer way too much against the Saracen. One thing that's worth mentioning is that he understood that Liereyy was going for a very passive approach, so he actually took some time in order to transition into his archer. Basically, his idea was walling the sides and leaving the front open here, but wait for his opponent with the use of the outposts. And then we actually had a full Saracen attack here from Liereyy going for his archers. I found this one of the most difficult strategies to counter, or to at least hold, which is basically the Saracen fast castle into archers. But one thing that actually surprised me is that with a minimum investment on the scout line, Hero did manage to reach Castle Age faster. Not only that, but he also defended the initial archer push with a few skirmishers and already transitioned it into the Berber weapons. Berber weapons were used here a lot on this tournament, and when I talk about Berber weapons, it's basically their cheaper cavalry and also the Genitor as a good counter to the ranged units. So despite having no economical bonuses, Berber are still quite popular and useful civilization in many scenarios, like this one. So Liereyy had a big mass of archers, so this would surely take some time in order to mass enough army to counter him, but one of the biggest threats when you are actually getting attacked by archers is the player just making a mangonel follow-up, because basically mangonel will have a great synergy with the archer composition, since it can counter elite skirmishers and it can also take down buildings. That combined with the Saracen bonus means that the player can usually snowball if he actually drops a siege workshop. That was unlikely to happen on a map like this, especially when the player has full awareness of the map because of the outposts, and of course is also trying to fight. But Hero was playing very solid here and going for a minimum of 3 villagers only on gold. I found this to be very greedy. The guy just used his initial 3 villas on gold during all the times, and mostly played with a food and wood economy, which allowed him to keep developing his economy. Trying to defend from the camels plus crossbowmen using the Genitor was quite the way to go. Genitors have a lot of HP with the same armor of an elite skirmisher, so easy to maneuver, easy to micro, and on these games usually players do not want to get early ballistics because that would actually delay their booming so much. So it was mostly, and of course they can also dodge ballistics on the level that they are playing at, so ballistics is kind of a dead upgrade for most of it. With With that said, what actually surprises me is how sneaky Liereyy was. As you can see, he did build a siege workshop there and massed 3 mangonels before releasing them without Hera ever knowing about them. As you can see, he was fully controlling the line of sight of the map. So far Hera has no idea that he's about to face mangonels. He's even investing into a 3rd town center, and suddenly 3 mangonels surprise him. That's not a single mangonel. He won't have time to start making his own mango, so by the time he starts to make his own mango, he's at a big risk because his opponent is marching forward with his army and will start taking down his buildings with the combination that I mentioned before. So in my opinion, this was the hardest part of the game, and if I had to face such situation, I would probably be in a lot of trouble. Perhaps I would even panic a bit. Well, especially if it was against Liereyy. Yeah, I would definitely panic. That was not an easy approach. So basically you had mangonels there, and as you can see, high level players are pretty good advancing and also taking advantage of their mangoes. As you can see, Liereyy was constantly taking down the houses, and because of that, Hera was housed for a while because he did lost his houses, and that delayed a lot his counterattack with his own mangonels. He was constantly trying to poke the enemy using his janitors and his superior army control there, but that was not as easy to do here. So it was a very desperate moment of the game. I felt like Liereyy would just snowball the game from here and win. I didn't expect this game to go any longer. But it feels like I was wrong, because Hera did use his monks to try and convert some enemy camels. He sniped the mangonels slowly at the cost of a few janitors, and tried to do his own mango to defend. He even repaired his siege workshop in order to keep alive for a bit longer, and eventually it started to trade against the enemy mangonels, which was pretty decent. Still, if he actually lost one of the mangoes before taking the enemy mangoes down, that would be a big issue for him. So constantly dodging the enemy and constantly trying to hit back his mangoes was the key here. As you can see, he sacrificed several views and got a lot of idle time on his economy just in order to defend. But with a combination of good monk conversions plus janitor plus some great mango trades like this one, he actually managed to defend. Pretty decent, right? So all the 4 mangoes from Liereyy and the snowball effect that he had actually stopped after that. Still, he did inflict quite some damage to Hera that was now trying to recover by adding also a 4th town center. Meanwhile, different from many players that would actually full commit, and if they lose the push they would lose the game, Liereyy is a high level and top level player, and for that reason he also developed his economy quite well on the back. So I think that what makes the difference between a champion or a guy with potential to win a tournament like Liereyy is that not only he's just gonna bet everything on this strategy, but he's gonna make the strategy like, I'm gonna push with my archer, camels and mangonels, but I'm also gonna boom behind because I have no guarantee that I can actually finish off the game. So if I cannot finish off the game, it's not over, I will just be booming and I will take this confront to Imperial Age. And that's exactly what happened here. Once Hera was able to keep microing out of his economy, things become a lot more comfortable and he started poking back with the janitors, monks and even the converted camels that he had from his opponent. So basically he started sniping out the crossbowmen, the mangonels, dodging like lots with his monk, which was quite annoying to deal with, and because of this he just relieved the pressure and started to boom towards the Imperial Age. The matchup was still very complicated if you take into consideration that Berbers is one of the few civilizations with no access to halberdier. This means that Hera would have to take some action in order to counter the Saracen camels. He would either have to play with his own Revi camels and try to win by numbers, like using the Maghrebi Revi camels and win with the numbers, or he would actually have to play in another way, like going for the Berber Camel Archers, which was actually his unit of choice on this game. So 40C, fully boomed, and on the way to the castle age. As you can see, one thing that I find very interesting and I think that more players should consider is, despite having somewhat of a map control and the capability of even dropping his initial castle there on the front, trying to secure already one of these goats, he actually needs this castle to be alive, to be constantly producing units. So he actually made the castle a bit more safe here, closer to his initial TC, and this castle would actually provide a good cover of the front of his base, helping him to defend from enemy raidings. So if you do want to go for your unique unit like the Mangudai, like the Camel Archer, I don't think you should risk going for way too many forward castles. Instead, going for at least two safe castles is the way to go. If everything goes wrong, you can still do that. His economy was going pretty well, but Liereyy was also on the way to Imperial Age. As you can see, he did prioritize all the upgrades for the Camel Archers, so ballistics, chemistry, tumbling. He also is about to get all the unique upgrades from the Berbers. His second castle was still defensive, but on a hill, so which makes it harder for the opponent to deal damage into it. And of course, he started poking back the enemy using the Camel Archers. This unit require like a constant babysitting, because if the camels ever get close to the Camel Archers, they are still gonna do a lot of damage, and taking down these camels is quite annoying. On Imperial Age, on their base form, they already have 145 HP, and as you can see, he was constantly having to dodge and avoid any kind of confrontation or even running from enemy traps there to keep his army alive. So having an excellent army control and not giving letting his opponent even touch his camels was the core part of his game plan. As you can see, his economy was running pretty smooth, and he was starting to upgrade to get the unique upgrades as well. The two unique upgrades that the Berber have access both benefit their Camel Archers here. The first one's called Casbah, which actually increased the work rate from castles, so basically he would be able to keep producing 25% faster from the castles and therefore massing his army. And the second one is called Maghrebi Camels, which honestly is a great technology and scales pretty well into the late game, which basically allows the Camel Archers to regenerate themselves. Apart from that, he knew that he would need somewhat of a front line and some melee unit to snipe siege and to make the front line for the Camel Archers to keep fighting. So he did choose to go for the double goat composition, going for both Camel Archers and Revi Camel. Honestly, I love the fact that we are seeing a very open map. Let's say it's somewhat similar to Arabia, despite all this green area, and it was being played between two Arabian civilizations, both Berber and Saracens here, which actually felt pretty interesting to watch. So ultimate Camel showdown as the first game from the finals, and the players failed to kill each other during the previous ages, both survived to Imperial Age, and then we had a full Imperial Age game about that. As you can see, Berber camels are quite cheap. They do have an excellent discount here of 20% on Imperial Age, which means that he's only paying 44 food and 48 gold for his Revi camels. As the Saracen does have a great economy and extra HP camels, the Berber have just cheaper ones. So extra stats versus cheaper one, but of course with the backline of the Camel Archers. To complement his army composition, Liereyy actually went for elite skirmishers, which can actually deal damage to Cav Archer units and hurt the Camel Archers from the distance. I think that it's worth mentioning that so far those Camel Archers still had no elite upgrade, and that's actually some topic that we need to talk about one of these days. Sometimes all the other upgrades such as Bracer, Chemistry are way better than going for the elite upgrade. I mean, the elite version sometimes just is a very expensive technology, and often doesn't add way too much than barely like 5 to 10 HP and like 1 or 2 armor for the units. So for this reason, I think that the priority was correct. Right there, Hera just lost his first castle. He was starting to make extra castles here, and those castles, as you guys can see, were a lot safer here. None of them were like exposed. He was just trying to keep his army ahead, fighting with his double gold composition. And honestly, if you do fight with a double gold composition, you should be the one winning, because if you are not winning and if you are not pushing back your opponent, eventually your gold is gonna run dry. So it's very important, if you go for the double gold composition, that you win all the initial fights. Of course, indeed, you do have the gold composition, that's what is expected from you. And meanwhile, he was just dropping several castles, so for Liereyy to stop the Camel Archers from popping out would be such a challenge. And by the way guys, my grab camels is taking place here. This camel that has only 6, now 7 HP is slowly going to heal over time. So of course, players can still use herbal medicine and monks to cure their armies, but they still have this curing factor here, which is pretty decent. You might argue that some civilizations might have it for free, like the Viking Berserkers or even the Georgian with all their cavalry, and you were correct about that. And honestly, that's pretty broken for those civs. And then Hera did took some decision that felt very interesting. It's a difficult decision to make, honestly, and it might not make some sense, but it's totally worth, which was basically switching from his gold front line of the camels in order to go for the Russars. Russars are pretty decent and different from the camels. They obviously do not cost gold. For this reason, it's quite easy to keep massing and spamming units if you are playing here with the Russars, because at some point gold is gonna run out. So if you're trying to play with the double gold comp, that might actually be not the best scenario. With that said, Hera just kept going for the Camel Archers. Liereyy just kept going for the camels, but slowly Hera started to save up some gold here by actually playing with the Russar front line. And the Russar front line is quite well, because now both players are going to have a similar composition here, which is basically one main or one core gold unit. It was the camels for Liereyy, the camel archers for Hera, and a skirmisher, a second unit, which was a trash unit. On the case of Liereyy, it was actually the lead skirmisher, and on the case from Hera, it was actually the Russar. And of course, usually guys, the units that are on the front line are the ones dying faster on the battle. So this means that over time, Hera would just be losing more and more Russars, while his camel archers would be constantly be there on the back line with a lot of mobility and a reeling factor. And for this reason, the expectation here is that his gold would just keep growing and growing and growing, as his opponent would eventually be using camels in the front line. And despite the good results that they could actually have versus the Russar, whenever the camel archers were involved, Hera would start to take down several camels. So Liereyy did his best to avoid losing his army, but it's still a very complicated thing to do. So Berber has a full mobile composition, while Saracen has somewhat a static issue because of the skirmishers. The Russars were constantly being used there to try and snipe out the skirmishers, and despite the good micro from Liereyy, he still had to sacrifice his frontline unit. He still had to sacrifice the camels if he wanted to engage or even to snipe siege. So over time, this is not a good setup for him. What I think that Liereyy should have considered on this game, adding Russars as well. The problem is you were actually going to play on the Berber comfort zone now, because his Russars are way cheaper. By the way guys, so far we haven't seen Elite Camel Archer. As I said, the upgrade can be postponed, it's not the priority here. Hera probably forgot, because at some point he had like way too many resources, but the regular Camel Archers and also the regular Cav Archers do perform quite well. So leave the Revic Cav Archer and the Elite upgrades for later in many cases. With that said, once the Elite was upgraded, he actually gained 1 extra attack, 5 extra HP, so a small stat increase on the unit, but honestly, that should never be the priority, so that's also something that we can witness on this beautiful game. With that said, Hera kept adding now the siege. He had the perfect composition for Imperial Age: 1 gold unit, 1 trash unit, and siege. Nothing more than that. Liereyy had something similar here. He had several camels, he had an elite skirmisher, but he was actually lacking enough siege to actually force a fight and do a big push. He was making use of herbal medicine and castles to actually try to heal back his army and have the full potential of the Saracen camels. He was constantly trying to trap the enemy Russars, but as you can see, losing Russars for Hera on this stage of the game, considering that you actually have like cheaper Russars, was quite well. And whenever Liereyy tried to fight, he was constantly losing army and Hera was always running towards his castles. So for this reason, without proper siege, Liereyy would never be able to push. So in my opinion, what he had to do here was to actually mass something like 5 to 6 trebuchets, if possible even with the Saracen upgrades like siege engineers and also the, what's the name of that? The counterweights for his trebuchets to have extra attack, and try to take down the castles from Hera one by one while he still had economy to use it. The problem is most of his castles were also very forward, and Hera was slowly starting to punish and besiege his castles. So once Liereyy lost like all the castles, he would be quite vulnerable to raidings, and despite having the camels, that would still hurt his economy and create distractions, while Hera had a big mass of castles that Liereyy had to go through if he wanted to raid. So raiding Hera was very difficult, while raiding Liereyy was starting to slowly become harder. So that's not the kind of game that you actually finish with one push, with a constant setup and decision makings, and honestly this for me makes up for a great and technical tournament final game, and for this reason this is probably one of my favorite games from the tournament. I could actually learn and witness many things from this game, and honestly very enjoyable to see. As you can see, constantly fighting is crippling down Lierey's economy, while Hera is constantly having the Russar production here, and he's barely replacing his camel archers because he's barely losing them. It's very difficult for Liereyy to actually snipe those guys. Now with the combination of heals, self-healing camels, bomber cannons, and a constant frontline input here of units, Hera was actually managing to get some fights, but not without sustaining a few losses. On the long run, things didn't felt so great for our friend here, because as you can see, Liereyy was always struggling with the economy. His farm numbers went down, he was not being able to develop so far, so I think that another mistake from him was not developing throughout the map to take this wood, while Hera was slowly doing that. Slowly, very slowly. With that said, we did have elite camel archers combined with Russars, pushing non-stop, bombard cannons, and this was the ultimate Berber composition for the game. Eventually, Liereyy would start to replace his front line from camels to Russars, and whenever you do have that, the guy that has the gold unit on the back line, usually a Cav Archer, Camel Archer, Arbalest, whatever, will usually have the edge. So if you have a front line gold composition, like playing Paladin and Skirmishers, Camel and Skirmishers, anything like that, I suggest that you try to finish the game as quickly as possible, because that's your winning condition. If you fail to do that, your opponent is eventually gonna kill you with his gold units. Right there, Liereyy was slowly getting pushed back, and Hera was sitting on his resources there, even upgrading now guilds in order to trade gold, food for gold more effectively on the long run. Beautiful, beautiful game, guys. Eventually calling the GG. So that was basically that this was a very technical game. We had Castle Age pushes, we had Feudal Age setups, we had Imperial Age full compositions, and a great Imperial Age game by Hera, marking the first game of the final series. Let's take a small look on the stats here. We did had a similar KD for both players, similar largest army for both players, a few conversions because of Hera's defenses. He even lost less buildings, but basically, as you can see, the KD is not so different between both players, which shows that they were playing within a very similar approach. What actually changes is the composition, where the Saracen, in order to have like a back gold line composition, wouldn't be so great. I would say that perhaps the Saracen would have better luck trying to finish off the game quickly with a double gold composition, such as Camel and Arbalest, or Camels and Mamelukes, or even full camels and trebuchets before the Berber could establish himself. Easier said than done, and game was taken by Hera.